Hi, everybody, and welcome. So great to see you. Thank you, everybody who dropped some little notes. I love to hear from you as we go along. And Be'ez Hashem, if you have questions, comments, Be'ez Hashem, drop them into the chat, and I hope to respond to them. So, you're so sweet. You add sunshine to my day, too. Being here in this group adds sunshine, even when it's pretty cold outside. Let's take a broth and some warm tea. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'vorah. Okay, it's been a nice rainy winter here in Eretz Yisrael. I hope that the rain brings down the bracha for everybody. And okay, so today we're talking about Parshas Vayigash, Sinas Chinam, and how to fit. You're expecting a snowstorm in New York. I've heard that you had one snowstorm, and then another two are going to be coming. You're having a really snowy. Everybody, I hope everybody stays healthy. Good to see you, and I hope that everybody, wherever you are around the world, is having I mean, those in Australia, obviously having a fun summer, and everybody else, the rest of us are having a good winter, Be'ez Hashem. Okay, so Parshas Mechiras Yosef and through his brothers. All right, we learn from this. Many people learn from the whole parsha how far we have to distance ourselves from sinas chinam, from jealous, and from the. So again, there's so many different mafarshim, and we know that they were tzaddikim. All of the shvatim are all tzaddikim, and it's not for us to start to say that they had sinas chinam. So I am not going to say about the shiftei kar that they had sinas chinam, but if Rav Asher comes along and says that the jealousy and the hatred of the brothers of Yosef to him, they were what caused Galus Mitzrayim. He says that based on what the Mefarshim say. I wouldn't go ahead and say it based on myself. I wouldn't say anything like that. But we're talking in the words of the Mefarshim that Rav Asher brings down to us. And he says that the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash was a toitzah of the sinas chinam that was going on in Klal Yisrael at the time. So sinas chinam is where somebody hates another person for the sake of hating. Okay, sinas chinam means it's just for the sake of hating someone. Somebody who has hate inside themselves and directs it towards another person. And they choose to be jealous and hate another person. Now, when we look at the story of Yosef and his brothers, we might say, well, they had a good reason to hate him. Their father preferred him. Their father bought him a special piece of clothing. He was the first son of the preferred wife. Certainly the children of Leah could have had an understandable jealousy. And we even see that Reuven attempted to salvage his mother's honor by changing around the tent situation after Rachel Imenu passed away. Reuven, the son of Leah, wanted his mother then to be the main wife after Rachel passed away, but that wasn't to be. Yaakov Avinu instead chose Rachel's handmaid instead of Leah. And so we could understand that the children of Leah and the children of the Shvatim might have felt a level of jealousy. So again, it's really, really hard for us to look at the story and we cannot really fathom what was going on between the Shvatim and Yosef. All we can do, I think, all I can do as a small person who's trying to learn the lessons that the Torah is teaching us, all we can do is say, if the Chachamim say, if the Meforshim say that we can learn this lesson from this parsha, then I'm going to attempt to learn this lesson from that parsha. But I'm not going to attempt to analyze the Shvatim in any way. I'm not going to attempt to understand the feelings of the Shvatim because that's beyond me. So we know that sinas chinam was something that was a terrible avera that caused Golus Mitzrayim and that caused the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. This we know. So it says in the Parsha, Vayipol al Savarei Binyamin Achiv Vayef Binyamin Bacha al Savarav. Yosef and Binyamin are united. They were separated for so many years. This is his only blood brother from both sides. Yosef and Binyamin were both the children of Yaakov and Rachel. They were the only two sons, and their mother had died in childbirth, giving birth to Binyamin. And so the bond between them was strong. And Rashi says on this, so again, they met, they were reunited over here when Yosef finally reveals himself to his brothers, and they fell on each other's necks and they cried. Yosef cried, Al shtei mikativ shais she'asidim liyos bechelka shel Binyamin v'soifen lehicharev. At the moment of their being reunited again, Yosef Atzadik cries for the two Beis Hamikdashes that were going to be built in the portion of Binyamin, and they would be destroyed. That's what Yosef is crying about at this point. And Midrash says, this is very surprising. Now, at the time of the joy, when they're finally reunited again after all these years, now is the time to cry about the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built in future generations. And why is he now crying about the Chorban? Why are they crying now about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? Why particularly are they crying about that? The Tzaddik Rav Yechezkel Mekozmir, Zeichet Tzaddik Livrach, answers this. When the two brothers met after they had been forced apart for so many years, they each felt and they each envisioned that the separation that had happened, they felt deeply on, like they felt experientially. They each understood that what had brought about the separation between them was the sinas chinam between brothers. They understood that that's what it had been, and right away they understood with their Ruach HaKodesh how terrible this awful affair of sinas chinam was, that it could destroy a Beis Hamikdash. So again, it was because of the connection to the sinas chinam that they had experienced, that the hatred and the jealousy that the brothers had exhibited towards Yosef, and that the opposite was going to be what they were going to be able to bring down together. And so they cried together about the destruction of the two Batei Mikdash that were going to be built in the portion of Binyamin, and they cried about the existence of sinas chinam, that the relationship between brothers can descend so deeply to a place where there will be such hatred and jealousy. And what is the resolution of this? How can we be mechaper, and how can we prevent it? He says, Reb Asher tells us the answer is avas chinam. Avas chinam is one of the foundational concepts that Reb Asher spoke about. He tried to instill avas chinam in his chabura, with his talmidim, that he called them the chaverim. He called them chaverim, and he talked about avas chinam over and over again. He brought down that in the Medrash, in the Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, it says, what is the ava that is going to be destroyed, that doesn't exist? That between Amnon and Tamar, which was it wasn't even a love, okay? It was absolutely conditional. It was I'm not going to say the words not to trigger everybody, but he totally took advantage of her. So that's not love. It's a replacement where one person gets what they want from somebody else in a brute physical way, but that's not love. That is not going to be mechanic. If our relationship is based on me getting something from you, I get what I want. So I might love the way that I feel when I get what I want from you, but that's not love. That is not going to survive. the test of anything. That's not love. What is the kind of relationship that's going to stand the test of time? Says Pirkei Avos, says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, the Ava of David and Yonasan. And Rabash explains why are they the signature couple of Avas Chinam, of unconditional love. He says, Yonasan was the son of King Shaul, and he was the next in line. He was the heir to the throne. And then along comes David, and he's anointed king. And Shaul, when he finally hears of this, he starts chasing David and pursues him and wants to kill him. And David began his career as a singer in the court of Shaul. He was brought in because Shaul was having a Marash Chaya kind of depression. And David was a singer, and he was brought in because he wasn't only a singer, he was an incredibly creative musician who sung with his whole heart. And we know later on that he knew how to dance before the Aron HaKodesh, and he brought such a spiritual bliss and happiness into all the creativity that he produced, his tehillim and the music that he played, that the idea was he would be able to bring a new life into Shaul HaMelech and bring him back to himself. And so naturally, as it was, David was in the palace. He knew Yonasan, the son of the king, and they became friendly. They became exceptionally close and friendly, and they loved each other, a soul attachment. They became like soul brothers. But when Yonasan understood that David was now anointed king, he could justifiably have said, "Don't take away my throne. I'm supposed to be the king. I grew up thinking that I'm going to be the king. You're going to take it away?" And David could certainly have been hesitant, but I'm going to, why should I entrust him with my friendship when I'm going to be taking away his throne, even though he knew that he'd been placed by Hashem, that he'd been anointed by Shmuel Hanavi. But nevertheless, he certainly could have mistrusted Yonasan. So it involved, for both of them, there was no good reason why they should have been friends. David should have mistrusted Yonasan, and Yonasan should have been jealous and fought off David. They each had a reason not to have their friendship. And nevertheless, they overcame the negative reasons why they shouldn't have befriended each other. And there was a tremendous bond of love between them. So unconditional love means not only is it not dependent on what I'm getting from you, but it's despite the fact that there are reasons to the contrary that counter-indicate our friendship. And Rav Asher would explain that if there may be people that there's no reason why you should be friends with them. There may even be reasons that counter-indicate the friendship. We're not talking about midos, okay? We're not talking about who they are, but we're talking about circumstantial elements that, let's say you used to be neighbors and now you're no longer neighbors anymore. So you really don't have any reason to see each other anymore. You've moved to different parts of the world. Or maybe, you met at a certain time in life. You worked in the same office, or you had something similar. Now you don't have anything in common anymore, but you've maintained the bond, even though there's no unifying interest anymore. But the friendship is nevertheless maintained. So, I mean, those are not exactly the same as David and Yonasan, but they gave a counterweight to the fact that there were elements that would have taken them away from each other. And despite those elements, they maintained their friendship. So that's how Rav Asher explains the avas chinam, the unconditional love, the idea that the love between them overcame the elements that could potentially have driven them away. And so, if we want to live with unconditional love, like David and Yonasan, Um, and also like Yosef and Binyamin, we have to understand that there have to be good midos in place. Loving people unconditionally is 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 not a gift that we can actually give to everybody, and it's not meant to endanger us. So there are certain limits to avos chinam. Again, David HaMelech was betrayed many times by many people. The one of the aspects of God as a David HaMelech was that those betrayals didn't lead him to lose faith in humanity completely. And he still maintained his friendship and was able to devote himself to those that were faithful to him, whilst at the same time carrying the pain at the betrayal. So he brought himself fully to those relationships where he could give himself fully, and and for those people that betrayed him, he painfully had to take steps back. So we need to have a certain amount of we have to contemplate. We have to be very I'm seeking a word that's escaped me right now. But we have to really reflect upon who are the people in these relationships and don't give the full benefit of our unconditional love to everybody. Self-esteem has a role to play here. Absolutely. Good question. So David HaMelech understood the power and the gift that was his friendship. Certainly, self-esteem is I value what I'm giving. I know what I'm capable of giving. David HaMelech understood what it meant, what his friendship meant, and how deeply valuable it was. So yeah, as he gave it to those who he knew he could trust, and when he offered it to those who he thought he could trust, he valued what he was giving, and he was deeply in pain when it wasn't reciprocated from those that were not trustworthy. Is there a different aspect you wanted to bring out? I'm happy to address further if you want to enlarge on that question about exactly what your concern is about where self-esteem needs to be fitted in here. Okay, if you want to. It's going to go back here then to the words of Reb Asher. So, what's the tikkun? How can we mechaper? Through avos chinam again. Avos chinam, as we've described it in the words of Reb Asher. So, he's now going to give us even more examples. Reb Asher is going to break down how does a person develop avos chinam, this element of unconditionally loving another person. He says, how do we do this? That when our friend is in pain, we need to feel the pain even more than we would feel our own pain. This is what Rabasha tells us. If we sense another person's pain and we know that they're in trouble, the way we should attempt to. Again, Rabasha was able to do this. Rabasha was from when he was a young child. Stories have told of him that he would give his clothes to poor people. He grew up in Yerushalayim during the time of terrible poverty about 100 years ago, was growing up in Yerushalayim, in the old city. And there was tremendous poverty, and he would often give his clothes to poor people. His mother, after learning who her son was, that he was just giving away his food every day, she had to bake. She would bake. She was delighted to bake little bagels, kind of a baked bun in a circle shape. Every day she would bake him these kinds of round bagel buns to take with him to Cheder, and he would take them on his arm and he would give them out to his friends because he could not bear the pain of other people. His depth of empathy and compassion was enormous, and it was expressed throughout his life's works, through all of the tzedakah and charity organizations that he built. So let me see, what are you saying? He didn't allow any lower self-esteem. Let me go back into the chat and answer your question. Oop, 1 second. Okay, while I technically try and get myself, oh dear. One second, I keep pushing the wrong thing. I keep pushing the wrong thing, trying to get into the chat. So give me a minute while I find the chat. Ah, there we go. No, that wasn't it. There's a different one. Let me see. There we go. Okay. He didn't allow any low self-esteem he might have felt as a result of his enemy's actions affect his friendship with Yonasan. I wondered, did he even have low self-esteem when he was treated badly? No, there we go. Okay. So again, there's an assumption here and something that we need to learn. Okay. Um, when, and this is, I'm so glad you asked that question because it's so fundamental to healing from all kinds of traumatic relationships. Okay. When we have been impacted by a traumatic kind of relationship and certain kinds of relationships, they may have the effect of us blaming ourselves and thinking it's me, I'm the problem, right? And that's why it relates in low self-esteem. If I end up blaming myself and I end up taking on the narrative, which probably is a false narrative, of the other person who says, because of you, I lost my temper. Because I mean, again, the examples that I've heard are terrifying of how, little children were blamed for their mother's anger. The children are blamed for their mother's breakdown, like a little child. No, the child was not to blame, but the child internalized that they were to blame because they were blamed by the adults around, rather than being told, yes, mommy's not feeling well. No, it's of course it's not your fault. You're just a little child. And a little child can't be so evil and bad that they could make an adult have a breakdown. For an adult to blame a child for their feelings is completely dysfunctional, okay, and inappropriate. But many people had the adults around them blame them for the adult's dysfunction, and then the child internalized, I'm bad, not just I did something wrong, but I'm bad, I'm at fault, and that internalization is the low self-esteem. And then at a certain point, we have to allow ourselves to internalize the message. It's not me. It wasn't me, and it isn't me. And that is one of the most healing messages. And truly, the journeys that I've taken with so many women along this path of healing from relational trauma has been a journey of extrapolating from within ourselves. What parts of myself do I think are the authentic me when they are really actually just reflections of and projections of what the other people, the dysfunctional people in my life, projected onto me. So one of my clients just told me recently, she said that in a conversation that we were having about feeling bad about herself, she realized that she wasn't bad, and that it was the people, one of her parents in particular, who had really given her the message that she was bad, that she was no good, that she was shameful, that there was something really wrong about her. And she said, you know what? There was something really wrong about that parent. That parent really was not okay. And I only found out much later in life that parent had done all kinds of different things that were completely inappropriate that she hadn't known as a child. But that parent was projecting the shame and the feeling of being something bad onto his child. And she said she all of a sudden realized, I'm not bad. Like that piece of me that felt bad and felt so shameful all these years it's not me. So exactly the question that you're asking about, did David have low self-esteem? David HaMelech, it's so far from us to understand the psyche of David Melech Yisrael, who was Regal Revi B'Merkava. He was chosen, David HaMelech, along with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. David is the fourth wheel, as it says, of the chariot of Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the kind of giant spiritual personage that he was is nothing that we can comment on. We can only learn from what the Meforshim tell us about David HaMelech. And here we understand that he did not have a low self-esteem. He understood his belovedness in the eyes of Hashem. He understood his worth. He understood how precious he was. He was humble, and he was out with the sheep, and he did not make himself more than he was, but he understood how precious and beloved he was to Hashem. He understood the gift of that he brought to the relationships that he was in. But certainly David did not have low self-esteem. He had not internalized the betrayal as being caused by him in any way, even if they might have blamed him for it. I'm sure there were those that were gaslighting at that time. I'm sure there were people who would have said that David brought it upon himself. Of course, there were people who did that, but David didn't take any of that at all. David understood. And in fact, David was the one who says in Tehillim, Im Ekesh tit patol. If you have a crooked person, go with him in crooked ways. You have to know how to manage a crooked person. David understood that. So certainly he understood the crookedness of those that had betrayed him. And he wasn't going to be maneuvered and manipulated into thinking that it was him to blame. I don't know if we can extrapolate anything psychologically from David HaMelech. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't dare. But that we can understand that he hadn't done that, and that it hadn't affected him. So we can learn that that's appropriate, that even if a person has gone through multiple betrayals, as David HaMelech did, that we can still value ourselves, and we have to realize it's not me. If a person betrays me, it's them at any level of betrayal. And I don't just mean in a marriage context, but although that obviously that in addition to that, but parents who don't live up to, like these parents who blame the child and make the child feel so worthless, they are betraying the role of a parent. The child is betrayed by the parent. A brother, Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. That was a betrayal. David HaMelech was betrayed by his son. A person can be betrayed by their own children. So these kinds of betrayals did not make David say to himself, "Well, I must have caused it." He didn't go there. He always examined himself and did tshuva for anything that he did. But he said, David HaMelech said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "You know that whatever I did, whatever vera that I did, is only between me and you, and I'm doing tshuva to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu." David HaMelech did whatever tikkun he needed to do with people down here. He took care of. He did tshuva, and klape HaKadosh Baruch Hu, towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was always cognizant of, as we mentioned last week, was he on the way up? Was he on the way down? Had he done something to separate? Did he need to fix it back up? He had his finger on his spiritual pulse. So he was aware of which direction he was going in and how to keep moving. Let me just go back to the chat and see if there's other things that anybody wants me to. Summarizing all the years of our work together. Yep, that's true. Let's see. Anybody else have something in the chat? Let me see. What else was in the chat? Thank you. Thank you for your messages, everybody. Anything else? Okay, fine. So that's. Oh, second. Okay, back here. Fine. So back to Rabashel, back to David HaMelech. So let's see. So again, Rabashel gives us one tool. How can we help ourselves to actually have unconditional love? Interesting realization about your family history. Thank you for sharing that. Through feeling the tsar of another person even more than we feel it for ourselves. If we attempt to go to the other extreme and feel more the pain of another person, this can help us actually fulfill avas chinam. Okay, that he said compassion in action, uh, empathy. Empathy acted out is compassion. When we actually do things, when we act out our feelings of another person is in pain, I have to do something. Uh, Another client of mine mentioned recently that she comes from a very dysfunctional family, and she went back to go and see them over Hanukkah, and one of the members of the extended family was having some kind of a physical um, something that looked like it might have been even a dangerous medical situation. And everybody was just ignoring what was going on. And she said she was the only one that called a dear friend of hers who was a doctor. And the doctor, her friend, told her, do this and this. And she said, we should do this and this. And everybody was just ignoring her completely. And she felt terrible. The person who actually was having the medical situation wasn't even, it was like from a different side of the family. There wasn't even her family member. But she was like, I have to take responsibility. I'm feeling terrible for this person. The feeling for another person. You can be in a situation where there are many people that don't feel like they just don't care about other people. They really actually don't. We live in a world where people could witness all kinds of things happen to somebody else and not react at all. Absolutely not feel caring for another person. And so the antidote is feel what's going on, feel the tsar of your friend even more than your own tsar. Now, if we are the kind of person that feels the tsar of the whole world and feeling everybody's tsar more than our own is probably not the best idea. Okay, so this medicine needs to be taken in limited amount for those people that already feel other people's pain more than their own. There are some rare souls who feels everybody's pain more than their own to the degree that they're not even aware of their own pain. And therefore they don't even care for themselves minimally the way that they need to because they're very busy caring for other people's pain. And so if that's you, then I've got news. And the news is that if that's how you've been living your life, utterly attuned to everybody's pain around you and not really being attuned to your own, it's time to pull back a little bit. It's time to be aware of your needs and what your body is telling you. If you need to slow down, if you need to rest, if you need to just take care of things so that you can live your life in a more empowered, authentic way. Because if we spend our entire lives only feeling other people's pain and not tuning into our own, that can also be imbalanced as well. So just have to create a little bit of balance. You may have to have a bit of self-awareness. If you don't know, talk it over with a good friend. Okay. So, and then he says, and also to celebrate the success of your friend even more than your own success. Rejoice in the success of your friend. Again, that's the antidote to jealousy, is to rejoice and truly be happy and celebrate the success of a friend. Not only is that a recipe for Ahavas Chinam, for unconditional love, but according to the Sefer Haredim, it is also a recipe for our own success. The Sefer Haredim says that if we look at our friend's success with a good eye, this brings down blessing for ourselves and for the other person. So if we genuinely feel happiness for another person's success, not only are we developing Ahavas Chinam, which is going to Beis Hashem bring down the third Beis Hamikdash in fire coming down from heaven, but in addition to that, it also brings down the Yeshuas for us as well. It's a segula for bringing down blessing to ourselves. And in order to this, 1 second. Okay. So that is why Yosef and Binyamin, each one, fell down and cried at the pain of his brother. Each one cried for the other's pain. Yosef and Binyamin embraced and cried in each other's neck for the pain. Yosef cried for the Beis Hamikdashes that would be built in the territory of Binyamin and would be destroyed. So this is why what the tears are about the pain of the other. Now that their hearts were together again, and their heart, mind, and soul were able to unite again, and they foresaw the life and the legacy of each other. What Yosef foresaw was the pain that was going to be in the lot of Binyamin. That's what he cried for, to show and to teach all the generations that the baseless hatred is that which it brings all of the cause for which we mourn. And the way to fix that up is going to be the Avas Chinam, that each one will mourn and genuinely feel the pain of his friend. And through this, we will also, Be'ez Hashem, be able, Yizke l'smoach b'simchase shel atzmai, u'b'simchase shel chaverei. Through this, he will be able to feel genuine simcha at his own simchas and also at the simchas of his friend. So Basha here is hinting to the fact that it's also a recipe to bring down success for ourselves, as the Sefer Haredim brings, that rejoicing in our friend's simcha is a segula for bringing down our own simchas for ourselves. Ki kishem shesinas chinam goremes lechorban u'bechia, because just as sinas chinam brings about destruction and tears, kach avas chinam tigraim legeula u'lesimchas oilam. So avas chinam, unconditional love, will bring the geula and eternal happiness and simcha, Be'ez Hashem, to the building of the third Beis Hamikdash. If anybody has any questions or comments, I would love to see them in the chat and respond to them. And if not, we'll finish, because I am aware that it's nice to stick to a certain amount of time and not to go on endlessly. Let's see. Any other messages from you all today?
I just want to say good Shabbos and thank you. And I'm actually in your time zone.
So great.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. It's great to see your face. Wonderful. Thank you. Great to see you, Linda. We're going to unmute and say something? We didn't hear you.
I said I wanted to also wish you a good Shabbos and thank you very much.
Great, Linda. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Hi,
Great
Linda.
to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi. Thank you.
You're saying hi. It's hard. You volunteer, and it's hard because different people have different things going on. Yes, and that's why I'm saying that for a very empathetic people who have been used to in their lives taking on so much of other people's pain. I was particularly talking to you. Yeah, I don't want you taking on too much of other people's pain. Okay, it's very important that that's not for you. And in fact, probably most of the people in this Zoom room are people who are people who are generally overly empathetic, and you probably have been taking on the feelings of other people for so long. And so I want you to understand that you already are living with Avas Chinam. You already are living with that kind of unconditional love. And so I want you to know you already are the antidote. Okay, you already are living that antidote. You don't have to exert yourself anymore. You may need to protect yourself from the betrayals of other people, but maybe work on celebrating more than feeling the pain. Yeah, very good. Well, exactly. Rejoicing in other people's simchas is a greater level. Maybe if you work on that and bring more joy into our lives through celebrating other people's successes, rather than working on the feeling other people's pain side, that might be a really good angle for the super empaths among us. Okay. And I'm so sorry for the pain of those who are still in situations where you're being betrayed by people who you wish you could rely upon. And you celebrate the joys of others. Okay, beautiful. Great. It's a beautiful thing to do. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody who takes the time to join us live, and those who listen to the recordings and keep this going. So grateful to everybody. Have a beautiful Shabbos. Maybe we zeicha to live with the joy of truly celebrating other people's simchas and our own, and the Geula Shlema all together. B'mhir Yomeinu Yerushalayim Habanuya. Good Shabbos, everyone.